Good morning, students. So today we are going to discussing junior intermediate botany. That is our keep in your mind. So today we are going to discussing about sixth unit. That is 12th chapter, internal organization of plants. Internal organization of plants, in which 12.3 anatomy of dicotyledonous and monocotyledonous plants. We have total that is dicotyledonous root, monocotyledonous root, dicotyledonous stem and monocotyledon systems. Means nothing but that is the here dicotyledonous root to monocotyledonous root, dicotyledonous stem and monocotyledonous stem. That is you have to keep in your mind here. So let us go through that one after one. Now we are going to discussing about dicotyledonous root. That is so let us go to that. So typical example to study the anatomy of dicotyledonous root. So briefly here they mentioned dicot root. You know that plants are generally depending on the seed having carpels number, dicot and monocot. So dicot plants example, when we take groundnut and pulses family, maximum red gram, green gram, and these plants are comes under dicot plants. But when we observe their root, dicot roots, example here they mentioned a plant is Helianthus annivus. So Helianthus annivus is the scientific name of sunflower. So there is a question, what is the scientific name of sunflower plant? So in Telugu, Podutirudu Mokka. So the scientific name of the sunflower plant is Helianthus annivus. So in which we are going to deeply discussing the anatomy of root. So the anatomy of root, generally here when we go to the first of all let us go to the matter here. The root, the internal structure of the dicot root consists of three major parts. That is epidermis, cortex, steel. So whenever we cut the root and a taken thin section, we can see in that section three parts: epidermis, cortex, steel. Epidermis, cortex, steel. Epidermis, cortex, steel. Now let us go through that here. Epidermis, about the first part of the. So here the given the dicot root, the internal structure shows three zones. The first zone is the epidermis, second zone is the cortex, third zone is the steel. Now the epidermis, when you go to that, so epidermis here consists, when you go to the epidermis, so epidermis consists of thin walled rectangular living cells are arranged closely without any intercellular space. So epidermis, it is the outermost layer. So now I will show you. So here, So Now this is entire layer, the single row layer, this is called epidermis. Here the given epidermis. So this epidermis have uniseriate, multicellular uniseriate. Multicellular means here 1 2 3 4 5 6 like this, many cells, but how many layers? Only single layer, this only one layer is present, so that it is called the epidermis. Usually in Dicot root, it is the outermost layer, it is the uniseriate multicellular, and the cells in the epidermis rectangular. The cells, when you take the cells, when you take in this, the cells are said to be rectangular in shape, and their walls are thin, their walls are very thin, and some of these cells developed hair like projections are called root hairs. Hair like projections are called what? Root hairs. Here they mentioned here, so root hairs here they mentioned here. Some of these root hairs are developed by the root, particularly epidermal cells. Some of the epidermal cells should be responsible for to development of the hair like projections are called root hairs. Root hairs, the important is to absorption of water and minerals from the ground. So this is the epidermis, and outermost layer, it is composed of uniseriate multicellular, and the cells are thin walled and rectangular in shape. So next go to the cortex. So from here to here, below the epidermis, second part of the Dicot root, when you go to that, from here to here, up to, once again I will show you. Now let us take here. So now from here to here, so this is cortex. Below, from epidermis to pericycle, this zone is called cortex. Cortex is divided into three types. It has three zones. So cortex divided into three zones. The upper zone, which is from here to here, is called exodermis, and from here to here is called general cortex, and the given below whorl in a circle yellow colored cells are called endodermis. So cortex divided into three zones, three parts: exodermis, general cortex, and endodermis. So cortex divided into three parts, that is exodermis, general cortex, and endodermis. So this is the general cortex. General cortex is usually consists three rows of cells. Generally 3 rows of cells, 1 row, 2nd row, 3rd row. So 3 to 4 rows below the epidermis is called exodermis. Below the exodermis, total from between pericycle to, that is exodermis, this is called general cortex. Now the circled arranged cells are called endodermal cells. That is called endodermis. Now let us go to the functions of these. So here the given exodermis. So exodermis is composed of 2 to 3 rows of thick-walled suberized cells. 2 to 3 rows of thick-walled suberized cells prevent the exit of water from the cortical layers. So mainly the exodermis function, when you take exodermis function, so the 3 rows of the exodermis cells mainly responsible to for prevent the water loss. Prevent the water loss. Next go to the general cortex. It is the general cortex. It is composed of several rows of thin-walled cells, living parenchyma cells, cells containing leucoplast, which help in the storage of food material, and in the general cortex helps in the lateral conduction of water. So the main function of the general cortex, it is composed of living parenchyma cells and thin-walled cells, and they consist leucoplasts, which help in the storage of food materials, helps in the lateral conduction of water. So mainly when we take the general cortex, so from here to here, this is total general cortex. These cells are filled with a leucoplastids. The speciality of leucoplastids which store the food material. So and also they may help to the conduction of water in lateral way. So they may help, general cortex should help to the conduction of water in lateral conduction. So this is the general cortex. Next to go to the endodermis. So when you see the clearly endodermis, so here the given endodermis. Now you have to see the, so endodermis is the last part of the cortex, which is made up by the uniseriate multicellular and barrel shaped cells. The cells mainly when you take the barrel shaped, పీపాకారంలో ఉంటాయి cells. So when you take the barrel shaped means, so like this, both sides are swollen. So this is swollen and this is swollen. Lateral side will be swollen, and this is the walls. Because of swollen in lateral side, they look like as a barrel. Hence these cells are called barrel shaped cells. We should consider. So endodermal cells are barrel shaped cells. Endodermal cells are called barrel shaped cells, and the mainly when you take here the walls of the lateral, and so when you take these walls are will be thickened. Walls will be very thickened corners. So because of these thickenings of the corners of the endodermal cells, they are called Casparian thickenings. The corner of the epidermal cells will be thick, so that because of their thickening, so these cells, these thickenings are called Casparian thickenings. So that is you have to keep in your mind, endodermal cells. And now steel. So steel composed of three major parts. It is so now below the endodermal layer, now this one, the brown colored cells which are arranged in a ring, these cells are called pericycle. Pericycle is made up by the live cells, and these are responsible for cell division. During cell division they participate. Pericycle is the single layered cells arranged in a ring or whorl, which is made up by all the live cells and present below the endodermis. So this is the pericycle. The cells in the pericycle are actually participate in the cell division. So the location of the pericycle is below the endodermis. So it is the first part of the steel. There is a question, which part is the first part of the steel? Means pericycle. Next let us go to the here the given vascular bundles. So here vascular bundles in root are present as a strands alternatively. So in vascular bundle there will be two types of tissues are present, xylem and phloem. Xylem and vascular bundle is made up by the two types of tissue. For example, here let us go through that. Here when you take this row of cells are called xylem. This row of this patch is called phloem. Again it is called xylem. This patch is called phloem. This one is called xylem. This one is called phloem. This one is called xylem, this one is called phloem. So they are arranged in alternate. After the xylem, phloem is present. After the xylem, phloem is present. So xylem and phloem are arranged in alternate manner, one after one. So they are present as a strands. So when you take here, the xylem position in the dicot root is tetrarch. The xylem position is in dicot root tetrarch, means 4. So this is the 1, 2, 3, 4. Hence in dicot root the xylem condition is tetrarch. Tetrarch condition. So whenever they ask question, in dicot root the xylem condition is tetrarch. Xylem condition is tetrarch. So when you could take in the one strand of the xylem, so this xylem have it is composed of the many cells, single row, 1, 2, 3, 4 like this. But when you take the cell which is present towards the pericycle is smaller. The cell which is present at the center, towards the center it is the large. So towards the pericycle, the smaller xylem cell is present. Towards the center of the vascular bundle, that is larger xylem cell. So the smaller xylem cell is called protoxylem. The larger one is called metaxylem. So usually the smaller cell, that is protoxylem, is present towards the pericycle, that is peripheral region. Hence the condition is exarch condition. The xylem condition in the dicot root is exarch condition. So whenever they ask in dicot root, the xylem condition is exarch. Why? Because the smaller xylem cells, that is protoxylem cell, is present towards the peripheral region. Hence the xylem condition is exarch. So how many patches of xylem? 4. Hence the condition of the xylem is tetrarch. The arrangement of the cell is exarch. That is, keep in your mind. So the large cell is called metaxylem, the smaller one is called protoxylem. These words you have to keep in your mind. The smaller xylem cell is called protoxylem, larger xylem cell is called metaxylem. If the smaller cell, that is protoxylem, present towards the peripheral region outside, that condition is called xylem condition is called exarch condition. Exarch. So this already you know that xylem always responsible to conduction of water and minerals from that is root to upper parts of the plant body, and phloem always responsible to transport of the food material from leaves to other parts of the plant body. But now when we take the phloem, so phloem here, there, phloem. So this phloem also consists generally all 4 types of components, seed shells, that is phloem, parenchyma, and like that 4 components it has. So and lastly, when you take about at the center, you can see that smaller one which is made up of by these parenchymatous cells is called pith. Is called pith or medulla. Pith or medulla. So medulla usually in dicot root, the medulla is maybe completely absent. So dicot root lo undochu ledante absent kavochu. So this is the important characteristic feature of the dicot root. Good morning, students. So today we are going to discussing about junior intermediate botany, that is 6th unit, 12th chapter, that is internal organization of plants, in which 12.3.1, that is dicot root. You know that already plants have many parts in that: root, stem, branches, leaves, flowers and fruits. But in which now already root general morphology we studied in previous classes, but today we are going to discussing about root anatomy, about dicot plants. So you know that dicot and monocot, 2 types of angiospermic plants. And example for dicot root, dicot plants already all pulses: red gram, green gram, and groundnut. And also we can take Helianthus annus. Here the given Dicot root anatomy to study a plant part, that is Helianthus annivus. It is the scientific name of sunflower. We should call it in Telugu as a Podutirudu Chettu, Podutirudu Mokka. Helianthus annivus is the scientific name of sunflower. The sunflower in Telugu we should call Podutirudu Mokka. So typical example they given, this whatever we are in front of us, this picture is regarding to the, that is Helianthus annivus sunflower plant root. So we are going to deeply, that is anatomy. So the root anatomy have the three major parts. The root anatomy have three major parts, that is unique epidermis, cortex, steel. Epidermis, cortex, steel. So epidermis is made outermost layer, and which is made up by the uniseriate multicellular, and some of the cells developed the root hairs. Some of the root hairs are help to the absorption of water. And when you go to the second part, that is the cortex. Cortex is present below the epidermis, and between the it is present between epidermis and that is steel. The cortex is divided into generally three parts, that is exodermis, general cortex, and endodermis. So once again I have a glance. The cortex divided into three parts: exodermis, general cortex, endodermis. So below the epidermis, 2 to 3 layers is called exodermis, and which prevent the water loss. And general cortex, which is made up, which is composed of leucoplast, because of composed of leucoplast, which stores the food material and also transport the lateral conduction of water. And endodermis, it is present, that is it last part of the cortex, which is present the cells as a whorl in a ring, these endodermal cells. The endodermal cells usually they are barrel shaped. Endodermal cells are usually they are barrel shaped. When you go to the, so endodermal cells, when you take, they are the barrel shaped cells. When you take the, these yellow colored cells are called endodermal cells. They are arranged in a whorl or a ring. These cells are barrel shaped. In their epidermal cells, their corners will be thickened. These thickenings are called Casparian thickenings. So this is the last part of the cortex. Now when you go to the third part, steel, the first part is the pericycle. So the pericycle, which we see here below the endodermal layer, this is the this layer is called pericycle, which made up of by the thin walled live cells, and which is responsible and participate in that during cell division. So inside steel there will be two types of tissues we can see, xylem and phloem. So there will be 4 strands we can see. This is the xylem. 4 strands we can see. Because of 4 strands in the steel, this condition is called a tetrarch condition. So after the xylem, phloem are present. After the each xylem strands, phloems are present. So after the xylem, phloem is present. After the xylem, phloem is present. Because of after the one after one, xylem after phloem, phloem after xylem, like that. So this alternate arrangement we can see. So the because of 4 strands of xylem, hence they are called that is 4 strands tetrarch condition. So in Dicot root, the xylem condition is tetrarch, and when we take the one xylem strand, we have 2 types of cells. Towards the center it is a large cell, and towards the peripheral it is a smaller cell. The larger cell is called metaxylem, smaller cell is called protoxylem. Because of protoxylem is present towards the peripheral region, outside the xylem condition is exarch. The xylem condition is exarch. So centrally we can see the little bit smaller white color cells. This is called medulla or pith. So we know that about xylem is responsible to conduction of water, minerals from roots to upper parts of the plant body. Phloem is responsible to transport of the food material from leaves to other parts of the plant.